So this group in 1974, the Bronx River Restoration.
Right.
Where did that originate? In what part of the Bronx?
It was focused particularly in West Farms neighborhood, just
West
a little
Farms?
south of here. And then they did quite a lot of work north of West Farms as well. And their vision really was for the whole of the Bronx River, but they never got particularly downstream from West Farms, I think.
Do you think a lot of these people were taking the opportunity of the kind of fading out of the restoration, that group? Was that sort of like ending or anything like that?
No, I think, no.
But what happened to that restoration?
Oh, well, they hit the 1980s.
Yeah.
The federal government really receded from offering funding for community efforts like this. This is the Reagan era. And so it carried on, and it planted a lot of seeds, but it didn't grow massively, and it didn't extend. It never was able to really extend into the South Bronx, where the needs for more open space were so profound. There are no parks like the one you were walking alongside, this morning. There were no parks like that. Nothing along the Bronx River in the South Bronx. You go to West Farms, you find some parkland. South of that, downstream of that, there's nothing along the Bronx River. And they had never been able to really achieve the dreams for or reach into that area.
So part of it was that a lot more work needed to be done south of West Farms.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And then you just needed really a river-wide effort to, especially for things like water quality, you need everybody working together on that to achieve it, because what happens upstream affects the downstream.
Right. And so when all this activity started going on in the south part of the river, I saw in a video that were people pulling out cars, that type of thing? Like,
absolutely.
I saw pretty dramatic stuff. Can you describe that?
By the way, that also happened in Muskrat Cove, where you were on Saturday.
Yeah.
But yeah, the story of pulling out cars, this is in like Starlight Park, is a really cool story. Because this was in the early days of groups coming together to, form common cause. It's a perfect example of how that works. The youth from the neighborhood, particularly youth who were active with Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice, they mapped the locations of these dead, dumped cars in the river. They knew where the cars were. And the Bronx River Working Group, all the different players in this, were able to get the National Guard to come in. And this was, thanks to the governor's interest in the Bronx River at this point. The National Guard came in as part of their training exercise.
And who was the governor
with
at this
cranes.
time?
Governor Pataki. This has now been through, Bronx River has been now through several governors who have all been, interested and supportive. So the National Guard came in with their cranes and these giant metal teeth, and lifted these cars out. That you could never have done it without their help and their heavy equipment. On the other hand, you could never really known where the cars were without the local knowledge of those local teenagers who were involved really in identifying, here's where they are.
How many cars were there?
Well, I don't know how many there were at that particular time, but I can tell you that over the last maybe 13, 14 years, we've taken out 80 cars. 80 cars. Some of them from these big days, and sometimes like one car at a time, because people love to dump cars.
Were they like totally
riverbanks.
underwater? They're deep, really deep parts of the river down.
They were underwater. The river is not so deep in all locations, and there, I'm sure, are still car parts and stuff buried in the sediment of the river.
I see a tire every day on the train.
And, yes, and we have taken out more than 12,000 tires out from the river and from the riverbanks. because people find it advantageous to dump what they don't want.
What makes the river an economic resource? Why is the word economic find its way into that list of assets?
Well, because I think we have an opportunity in the Bronx. The Bronx has been so beset by environmental problems that, and it shows in things like very high asthma rates, low ratios of open space to population in many neighborhoods. Though actually the Bronx does have a lot of parkland in some locations. It's wonderful parks in some locations. High rates of obesity, high rates of diabetes and other health problems that come about from income problems and environmental conditions. And so it's so beset by environmental problems that it actually, I think, has an opportunity to develop real expertise around solving environmental problems. When people talk about green jobs, this is a great place for green jobs. And actually, because the river itself is a place that needs care and will need long-term active management to keep it a resource, it also becomes a real job opportunity. You have to find ways to fund that, but it does have that opportunity. And we have, in fact, created 7 to 10 permanent green jobs of folks who have mostly grown up in the Bronx, gotten their training on the river, and are now on a daily basis contributing to the care of the river. So that particularly, that opportunity for green jobs, and we're not alone in that. There are all these other partner organizations, Rocking the Boat, Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice, Sustainable South Bronx, and others that are they are employing people who are doing environmental improvement, environmental work, open space work, and open space care, and also providing a lot of training of youth in those areas. So you're kind of getting this network of people who work in green jobs. And I think there's really room for more of that to happen. Then there's another way in which I'd say it's important for economic development.
But even along those lines, I saw so many volunteers the other day.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's so many volunteers.
And that's fabulous. And it's some of those volunteers, especially young ones, I really hope will go on to working in fields that are suggested by this work. And they will, some of them, be motivated and able really to get the opportunities to really turn that into a job. So there's that. But I also say this about the economic development aspect. You know, in some parts of the region, when people talk about the value of improved parks and waterfront, they're talking about how property values in that area will go up, which will mean more tax revenue. And that can mean income for the city. Okay, that's great. In the Bronx, I think the opportunity is more to create a really healthy environment that people can actually enjoy the benefits of, which can reduce our healthcare costs. And so I think it's a different opportunity there, and that also is really of economic importance. I mean, we're spending millions trying to deal with these health problems in the Bronx, millions and millions. And improving the environment is actually, I think, it's sometimes the only way that you're really going to improve health outcomes, which is ultimately going to be very important for the borough's economic future.
Do you think open spaces has transformative effects on people's behavior in general? Or I shouldn't say behavior, but just basic well-being?
There's a lot of interesting research that suggests that it is. Things as simple as research like people in hospital rooms having better health outcomes if they have trees outside the window to look at. People in public housing projects having better health outcomes and life outcomes if they have green space that they're coming into contact with. So yes, I absolutely do think that. There's another way, though, in which I think we can have some positive outcomes like that. It's not just the green, it's the role you might play in making it green and keeping it green. So say for some of those volunteers that you were seeing on Saturday, some of those kids and some of those adults too who are out there really helping to care for that area, if they can come out of that feeling like they're actually able to make a positive difference, I think that can have a very powerful effect on their feeling that they can also take on other issues and have a positive effect. We know that's true for the primary organizations that have really helped to build the Bronx River Alliance.